question is not whether or not there are little green men in a basement somewhere. I do believe there is a fundamental arrogance to thinking that we are the only planet in this ever-expanding universe that has had the conditions for carbon-based existence. I do think there's an arrogance to that. But there is no arrogance in demanding transparency from the government, especially when they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on programs that they don't really want to tell us about, okay? And that's what was happening on Capitol Hill today. That they're showing photos to prove, look, man, this stuff is out there, it's real. Maybe it is extraterrestrial, maybe it is proof that we're not alone, but it's certainly proof that you're not telling us what you should know. Mike Gold, a former NASA associate administrator, presented the pictures, okay? We're going to show them in just a moment. And the meeting was moderated by Luis Elizondo, the former head of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, okay? He moderated today, all right? Mike and Luis join me now. It's good to have you both, fellas.
Thank you so much for having us, Chris, and thank you for the attention you're paying to this issue.
Oh, 100%. The transparency matters. It's actually embarrassing how they keep ducking you guys. So tell us about the pictures you brought today, what they mean to you and what they should mean to the government.
So one of the images I showed today, well, we'll do. One of the images that I showed today was from Apollo 17, and it looks like a triangular UAP. It's actually very similar to many of the other images that you've seen from UAP footage that people have taken. And to be honest, I don't know what it is. I don't think Lou could tell you. I don't think anyone could tell you. But what I do know is that it's worth investigating. These are anomalous phenomena that are inexplicable. And even if it doesn't turn out to be something extraordinary, this could be a natural phenomenon that could be quite interesting. It could be ice particles that could be very important. We must look at this data. We must get to the truth, demand transparency. And that's how we learn through anomalies. That's how science is done. That's how learning is driven.
And it's how you build trust in the government, Lou. I mean, that's what's at the all-time low right now. And this is such a layup for them. What is the resistance? Do they think, you guys are crazy and that there is nothing to know?
Now, I'll tell you, Chris, that was not what we saw today on Capitol Hill. We had, under the leadership of Rep. Luna, and Rep. Burleson was there, Rep. Burchett, and Rep. Begich, all were there to hear the testimony of former intelligence officials, scientists, academics. We had Harvard professor Avi Loeb there from Harvard, also having a discussion with them open. This was a marathon forum. This lasted almost 4 hours, where they received an earful. And I'll tell you, I think this story is evolving. There was one individual who was a former astrophysicist who worked for us on ATIP, named Eric Davis. And I suspect you're going to be hearing a lot of rumblings within the next week or two about what he told Congress.
I think, Chris, we are still dealing...
Anna Paulina Luna, by the way. I like that she's doing this. I like that she has a STEM background, what she studied in college. I think it's good. I mean, look, Mike, this is why it matters. They're not even telling us what that crap is that's flying over the bases, okay? And it's shutting down missions. I mean, it's so crazy that this is something that they should be anything but nonchalant about. This should be panic time.
Well, all of this information is publicly available. We spend a lot of time talking about classified information, things being hidden. I'd like to focus on what NASA is releasing to the public. For example, one of the other images that you're seeing here is of a lunar horizon glow. That's what looks like a sunrise on the moon. We capture that via Redwire's Argus cameras that were on the Firefly Blue Ghost system that landed on the moon just last month. And these are some of the exciting discoveries we're going to make on the moon. I don't know what that is. There was the theory that this lunar horizon glow was lunar dust that was rising, being electrostatically charged by the sun. But future experiments, past experiments that we've done, have shown that there isn't enough dust to create that effect, and that the electrostatic charge would not be able to create it. So we don't know what that is. It requires more study, more analysis. As the commercial space field moves forward, companies like Firefly, Redwire, SpaceX, Blue Origin, we're democratizing space. We're getting more imagery, more data that will potentially unlock the mystery of UAP and provide answers to this incredible question.
And Mike, let's be clear, that photo that they just showed, that is not the sun. Is that correct for the viewers out there?
It is not the sun. It is not the earth. This is an anomalous phenomena in the truest sense of the word. We don't know what it is. It could be something extraordinary. It could be something natural. Either way, it demands research. It demands that we take a look at this. And this is just one of many images. This is just a cursory review of the treasure trove of data we could get if we did an AI ML search of the NASA archives, which is something that I hope all of your viewers call into your members of Congress and demand.
100%.
Chris, I'll tell you too that we had Admiral Tim Gallaudet with us as well, and former DASD at the Pentagon, Chris Mellon. And all of them were really echoing what Mike Gold is telling you here, is that there is an urgent need for greater transparency and to minimize the over-secrecy, because right now, as you said, Chris, the faith and confidence is at an all-time low with our own government.
Yeah. I got Mellon
Follow
and Lewis
the science,
if you want,
Chris.
100%. If you want more perspective on this stuff, go to the Chris Cuomo Project podcast. Lewis and I talked for a bunch of time. Chris Mellon and I talked for a bunch of time. Corbell and I have talked. So there's a lot there if you want to get deeper on this. Gentlemen, thank you very much. To be continued.
And let's take a live look at Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are looking to get to the bottom of who's responsible for numerous drone sightings near U.S. military bases in recent months. Today's House subcommittee hearing comes months after the White House said those drones spotted over New Jersey were, quote, not the enemy. NewsNation's Brooke Schaefer is keeping tabs on this one for us. Brooke, good morning. I remember those drones over New Jersey. People were worried, but lawmakers treating these drones as a serious threat now.
Hannah, officials from the Department of Defense and the FAA are expected to testify in this hearing in Washington, D.C. later today, addressing what at least one lawmaker described as a significant threat to our national security. The subcommittee on military and foreign affairs says drone sightings over military bases have shot up, and U.S. military sites are being exposed to surveillance, espionage, and potential weaponization. Congress today looking to tackle those vulnerabilities and answer the question of who is in charge. Subcommittee Chairman Congressman William Timmons said U.S. agencies' confusion over who's responsible for countering increased drone activity severely hinders our military's ability to respond to threats in real time. As you mentioned, today's hearing, it comes several months after a number of drones were spotted over New Jersey, prompting serious concern for weeks from people who live there. Some of those drones were reportedly sighted over 2 military installations, according to the Department of Defense, though a spokesperson for the Joint Staff called those sightings typical. But a top NORTHCOM and NORAD officer told the Senate Armed Services Committee in February there were 350 uncrewed aircraft systems reported last year over 100 different military installations, telling senators these drones pose a growing threat to safety and security.
Senator, the primary threat I see for them in the way they've been operating is detection and perhaps surveillance of sensitive capabilities on our installations.
The subcommittee chairman for today's hearing in D.C. calling for swift action to defend the American people. Hannah?
A lot of eyes on this, no doubt. Brooke, thank you.
Tonight as well, a big development in the search for the truth about UFOs. It's been more than a year since the whistleblower, that guy right there, David Grusch, sat down with NewsNation's Ross Coulthart and shared some big revelations.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do.
That interview caught the attention of Congress. Months later, Grusch testified about his allegations. And now, NewsNation the first to report today that Grusch is expected to soon head right back to the Capitol. Our Joe Khalil was the one who broke the story today. Joe K in the Capitol hallways, you might have a new visitor there for the next 4 months or so. David Grusch, explain why.
Yeah, this is very significant. So look, this is probably the world's most famous UAP UFO whistleblower.
Right.
Now you can throw congressional staffer on his resume. He's going to be working for Congressman Eric Burlison, a Republican who's been at the forefront of this. A very big deal. Burlison had been trying for some time to get Grusch to work with him. Why this is important is because you've got a lot of activity over the last 2 years in this space.
Right.
You've had hearings, multiple, you've had private, classified briefings. A lot of lawmakers say they don't know the right questions even to ask to move the ball forward on this topic.
Right.
So Grusch is someone who can give him lines of inquiry, can say, these are the threads to pull.
Why does he need to be an
ask.
employee for that, though?
So he technically can do this in
Right.
certain capacity, right? But when you're talking about getting people into a classified space or a setting, that's something that you need to have either clearance for or that you need to be on staff in some way. And I've actually heard that they may try to increase his clearance now that he is a congressional staffer. That also is an important element of this, and something that, you know, he has had things that he has claimed, Grusch has claimed he cannot say publicly. If his clearance is higher, it's possible, he says, he might be able to disclose certain things. So all of that is something we're going to be watching.
And I think it's important to note here, Eric Burlison isn't just like some random congressman who says, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let's see if I can get him to work for me. He's one of the original, along with Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Jared Moskowitz, who have been asking a lot of questions here.
On the Oversight Committee, on the UAP caucus, so he's been very much at the center of this. And it was his idea, actually, to bring Grusch on to his staff.
As sightings in our skies stack up, one lawmaker now wants these whistleblowers back on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna heading up the task force on declassification and transparency. She says that includes UAPs. And just days ago, she shared she's hoping to get Grusch and Elizondo, as well as officials from the Pentagon's UAP investigation office, together. The group could meet in a sensitive compartmented information facility that's also known as a SCIF to share what is known. And for more, we are joined by NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. Ross, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Natasha. Good evening.
Is this game-changing? Because Congresswoman Luna wants to hear more from these key figures who, by the way, you have spoken on, you have brought to NewsNation, like David Grusch, like Luis Elizondo. Talk to us about getting these whistleblowers into a SCIF. What will that be able to reveal that hasn't been revealed before?
Well, frankly, I have to be honest with you, Natasha, and say it's not worth a hill of beans unless the committee that Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna leads, or rather the task force that she leads, is given the resources and the powers to do its job. At the moment, they're still trying to figure out whether or not they can get the security classifications of David Grusch, for example, restored so that David can give evidence inside that SCIF, knowing that he's not breaching any national security obligations. One of the problems we've got at the moment is we've been promised a lot by the new administration, and we should hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they are leading and honouring those obligations. But the simple fact is, at the moment, Anna Paulina Luna's task force, it's a 6-month task force. She's pledged to look at not just UAPs, but also investigate the assassination of JFK and the release of those files, organise the release of the Epstein files, investigate Martin Luther King and RFK's murders as well. And frankly, I don't think there's much chance of her doing that within the 6-month period. She doesn't even have the powers of subpoena. They have to come from the actual Oversight and Accountability Committee Chairman, James CUOMO. So a lot of people, myself included, are getting increasingly sceptical that the administration is promising a lot to get a quick headline, but are they actually going to follow through and give the well-motivated and well-intentioned Congresswoman Luna the powers she needs? Just this week, to make my point, she had to actually publicly tweet out to the new Attorney General that the Department of Justice was failing to respond to her task force's request for access to files. And she was resorted to actually having to publicly tweet her frustration to Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, that essentially they're not getting a response from the Department of Justice. So a lot of talk, a lot of jaw, but are we going to see any action? I think we're entitled to be sceptical.
I hear that skepticism loud and clear, and you are not alone in this, Ross. With the time we have, I do want to get to some exclusive testimony that you heard in the very latest episode of the Reality Check podcast. An underwater explorer describing a strange circular structure on the floor of the Baltic Sea appearing to look like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Let's take a listen together.
It's 60 meters. And for me and Peter and all the other crew members, we have never ever seen anything big like that.
Yeah, apparently measuring just under 200 feet. So tell us more about what's being called the Baltic Sea anomaly.
What's exciting about this object, and this is what Dennis Asberg, a well-known underwater explorer, tells me in this edition of Reality Check, is it's not just that it's a solid object. It's the fact that it's an object that appears to show signs from the scans that they've done of human cutting. Somebody's manipulated that object and cut shapes into it. There are square-shaped edges, exact 90-degree angles. There are etches that look like squares leading into some kind of doorway. So there is a suggestion that this object is somehow some kind of constructed object. Nobody's saying it's a spaceship. Mr. Asberg is not saying that. He's never said that, and he's been mocked for ever, a lot of people have tried to debunk him for suggesting that, which he never did. What is a possibility, I think, is that this is something that has fallen from the orbit, or more importantly, maybe it's something that was there before the Baltic Sea filled in, which would be very interesting, Natasha, because the last time the Baltic Sea was empty was about 15,000 years ago, well before known human civilization.
It's very interesting. Ross Coulthart, as always, illuminating. Thank you.
So there was another object. There's two objects that I'm here to talk about. One was the egg. The other is what we called an 8-gon. The 8-gon was essentially a flying disc with what looked like 8 delineated sections when looking down. And I can tell you what it looked like from looking down because that's primarily how I saw it, because I'm a helicopter pilot. We did recoveries with the 8-gons. There was more than one that made its way to the ground on this particular operation.
Simply seeing a non-human craft up close would be an intense experience in itself. But Barber says as he prepared to transport that so-called 8-gon from the pickup site to the drop site, something even more intense happened to him that would change his life forever.
This is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life I'm about to share with you, so bear with me. So as I get closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song, and it was very disruptive to me because I had a very practical responsibility at the time to operate a helicopter in the mountains at night, and I began wondering what was wrong with me. It was late. Am I distressed? Am I tired? I don't know. But as I came over this object for the pick, it was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. And then I'm confused as to why I'm crying at the same time. And then do I abort the mission? So I just did my best to focus on my particular cues when doing this type of work, and I got the load hooked up and I began flying away. And once it was just me and that object in between the pick and the drop site, there's about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by. And
was it loving?
It was loving. But there was a sense of sadness at the same time. And
had you ever had an experience like this before?
No, it was a very feminine energy, I'll tell you that. It felt like the spirit of God, but not in any masculine sense. And it wasn't like a soul, it was like a frequency that I was connected with. And whatever that force was since that night, it has stayed with me. And as crazy as this sounds, it's what's guiding me now. And it's what's providing protection for me.
It's changed your life.
It's changed my life.
Wait a second. Humans bonding psychically and emotionally with non-human intelligence? Yes, Jake Barber says that's exactly what happened to him. And he's not the only one. And he says the government knows all about it.
There is a psychic component to the research and development of the UAP program.
What were you?
What was I? Ross, I was a highly talented airplane mechanic who got to deploy on a number of presidential support missions.
But Jake was no ordinary mechanic. Being recruited into the Air Force's elite combat control unit meant he had a resume that reads like something out of an action thriller. Helicopter pilot, free-fall parachutist, expert marksman, and the recipient of a NATO top-secret security clearance, a legacy of his service in Bosnia, where he won an award for an act of heroism. In addition to reviewing his official documentation, NewsNation spoke with 3 former Special Operations soldiers who corroborate Barber's credentials and claims.
I know in Special Operations, you're often in some tough situations. You have to rely on each other. Is Jake Barber a person who you would trust?
Oh, yes. He's a person I would and have trusted with my life.
Do you think Jake Barber is a patriot?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's a thing I know a lot of special operators talk about, that there are certain types of men who you would want watching your back in a tight spot. Is he one of those guys?
Absolutely. Trustworthiness is one of the top things that we're looking for.
And one of his most fervent supporters is Colonel John Blitch, a Renaissance warrior who holds a doctorate in psychology, was a Delta Force sniper, and is one of the few men to hold doomsday in his hands, commanding a nuclear weapons battalion.
So you believe Jake Barber is telling the truth?
Absolutely.
There has been a cover-up lasting 80 years.
Absolutely.
We've recovered craft.
Absolutely.
So let's roll back. You say you were an enlisted man, and then you ended up working for the intelligence community as a contractor. Tell me that story. How did that happen?
Everything changed for me right around 9/11. And I left the Air Force and was sent out to California at that time to begin establishing my cover basis for an independent contractor, so that I could serve what was coming down the line next for me. And that is the path which led to the UAP subject.
Barber says he was contracted as a helicopter pilot and was part of a team assigned to retrieve crashed aircraft at an undisclosed testing facility in the desert. And we're not only talking about conventional airplanes or drones.
A lot of the work we did was on what I call the range, where the U.S. government and its private partners use to test all kinds of things, weapon systems and resilience to weapon systems of certain craft. And so you see a lot of exciting things.
So you start seeing at the range,
yes,
interesting objects.
Well, yeah, it's always interesting out there. Things come in and out of sight. Things disappear for a moment and reappear. Things seem to move very quickly. Things change color, they change shape. We did recover things that were exotic in nature in the sky, and we know they were classified craft. And we recovered them and took them back to where they go. The majority of what we see and do is explainable and is ordinary and is known by many people and is not classified. But there is a certain percentage which is extremely sensitive, and that extremely sensitive bit does include what we know is our own man-made advanced technology.
So you know what Louis Elizondo has described as the 5 observables. So you were seeing objects that complied with those weird observables.
Yes. So one of those that would raise your eyebrow is more of the transmedium characteristics, because things would come from the ground, like from the earth, from a ridge, from a mountain, or could pass through.
So they'd come out of a ridge?
Out of a ridge, yeah.
Aircraft that can disappear, change colour, change shape? How might the US military have developed or acquired such technology? Jake says he saw for himself close up.
In the rare occasion, or let's say the hypothetical occasion, something of a non-human origin or source were to interface with the ground, you would deploy that same team. And that is the segue in how we got involved with this particular subject.